The sun dipped behind the jagged skyline of what was once a thriving city, now reduced to a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered glass. In the heart of this desolation, a group of survivors huddled inside the crumbling remains of an old library, their faces illuminated by the flickering glow of a single lantern. Among them was Jackson Reed, a former firefighter whose broad shoulders and steady gaze had become a source of reassurance for the others. Beside him, Olivia Carter, a resourceful engineer with a knack for improvisation, meticulously checked the barricades they had constructed from overturned bookshelves and scavenged furniture. The group was small but determined: Marcus Hayes, a quick-witted college student with a sharp tongue, Evelyn Brooks, a retired nurse whose gentle demeanor masked a steely resolve, and Tyler Grant, a former high school athlete whose speed and agility had saved them more than once. Outside, the night air was thick with the guttural moans of the undead, their silhouettes shuffling through the debris-strewn streets, drawn by the faintest sound or scent of the living. The world had changed overnight, the outbreak spreading faster than anyone could have imagined, turning friends and neighbors into relentless predators driven by a single, insatiable instinct. The survivors had learned quickly that brute force alone would not save them. It was their ability to outthink the horde, to anticipate and adapt, that had kept them alive this long. As the group settled in for another sleepless night, Jackson reviewed their dwindling supplies, his mind racing with plans for the days ahead. Food was running low, and the water they had collected from a nearby rooftop tank would not last much longer. Olivia suggested a daring raid on a nearby grocery store, rumored to be untouched but dangerously close to a known zombie nest. The idea sparked a heated debate, with Marcus arguing that the risk was too great, while Evelyn insisted that they could not afford to wait any longer. Tyler, ever the optimist, volunteered to scout the area at first light, his confidence bolstered by the memory of past close calls. As the argument subsided, a sudden crash echoed from the far end of the building, sending a jolt of fear through the group. Jackson signaled for silence, his hand instinctively reaching for the fire axe he kept by his side. The survivors listened, hearts pounding, as the shuffling footsteps grew louder, punctuated by the unmistakable sound of fingernails scraping against wood. Olivia motioned for everyone to take their positions, her eyes scanning the room for anything that could be used as a weapon. Marcus clutched a metal pipe, his knuckles white, while Evelyn readied a makeshift spear fashioned from a broken broom handle. Tyler crouched near the entrance, his muscles tensed like a coiled spring. The tension was palpable as the barricade trembled under the weight of the undead pressing against it, their groans rising in a chilling chorus. For a moment, it seemed as if the barricade would hold, but then a section gave way with a splintering crack, and a pair of decaying hands reached through the gap. Jackson reacted instantly, swinging his axe with practiced precision, severing the grasping limbs and forcing the creatures back. Olivia and Marcus rushed to reinforce the barricade, shoving a heavy desk into place as Evelyn jabbed at the intruders with her spear. Tyler darted forward, using his speed to distract the zombies and draw them away from the breach. The struggle was fierce but brief, the survivors working in perfect unison, their movements honed by weeks of constant danger. When the last of the undead had been repelled, the group slumped to the floor, exhausted but alive. The adrenaline slowly faded, replaced by a grim sense of determination. They knew that this was only a temporary victory, that the horde would return in greater numbers, driven by an unyielding hunger that could not be reasoned with or appeased. As the first light of dawn crept through the shattered windows, Jackson gathered the group for a quick debrief. They had survived another night, but the cost was clear: the barricade was weakened, their supplies were nearly gone, and the zombies were growing bolder with each passing day. Olivia outlined her plan for the grocery store raid, detailing the route they would take and the precautions they would need to avoid detection. Marcus, still shaken from the night's events, reluctantly agreed to serve as lookout, while Evelyn prepared a small first aid kit in case anyone was injured. Tyler, eager to prove himself, volunteered to lead the way, his eyes shining with a mixture of fear and excitement. As they prepared to move out, Jackson took a moment to study each member of the group, his mind weighing the risks and rewards of their next move. He knew that their survival depended not just on their individual skills, but on their ability to trust and support one another in the face of overwhelming odds. The city outside was a labyrinth of danger, every alley and abandoned building a potential trap. But within the walls of the old library, a spark of hope remained, fueled by the unbreakable bond that had formed between these unlikely allies. As they stepped into the uncertain morning, the question lingered in the air: would human intelligence be enough to outwit the relentless instincts of the undead, or was this truly the last stand for humanity? The answer, they knew, would be written in blood and courage, one desperate battle at a time. The city was eerily silent as Jackson, Olivia, Marcus, Evelyn, and Tyler slipped out of the library's battered side door, moving in a tight formation through the maze of abandoned vehicles and toppled streetlights. Every step was calculated, every breath measured, as they navigated the cracked pavement toward the grocery store 3 blocks away. Tyler led the way, his eyes darting from shadow to shadow, while Marcus kept watch from the rear, his nerves frayed but his senses razor-sharp. Olivia clutched a map she'd drawn from memory, whispering directions as they ducked behind a rusted delivery truck to avoid a small cluster of zombies feasting on something unidentifiable. The group pressed on, hearts pounding, the tension mounting with each passing second. As they neared the store, the unmistakable stench of decay grew stronger, mingling with the metallic tang of fear. Jackson signaled for a halt, crouching behind a row of newspaper dispensers to survey the scene. The grocery store's front windows were shattered, the entrance blocked by a makeshift barricade of shopping carts and plywood. Through the jagged glass, they could see movement, shadows flickering between the aisles, the telltale shuffle of the undead echoing in the empty space. Olivia studied the layout, her mind racing through possible entry points. The loading dock in the back, she whispered, recalling the store's design from her childhood. It might still be clear. The group circled around the building, moving as quietly as possible, but a sudden clatter of falling debris sent a ripple of panic through their ranks. Instantly, a pair of zombies lurched from behind a dumpster, their jaws snapping hungrily. Tyler reacted first, swinging his crowbar with desperate force, while Marcus jabbed at the second creature with his pipe. The struggle was brief but brutal, the noise drawing the attention of more zombies inside the store. Jackson urged everyone forward, adrenaline surging as they reached the loading dock. Olivia quickly picked the lock with a hairpin, her hands steady despite the chaos. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit storage room stacked with crates and boxes. They slipped inside, barricading the door behind them just as the first zombie slammed against the metal. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint scent of rotting produce. Evelyn immediately began searching for medical supplies, while Marcus and Tyler scouted the aisles for food and water. Jackson and Olivia worked together, moving methodically through the store, grabbing anything that could be useful: canned goods, bottled water, batteries, and even a few boxes of ammunition left behind by a previous group of survivors. The tension was palpable, every creak and groan of the building setting their nerves on edge. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the far end of the store, followed by the unmistakable sound of shuffling feet. The group froze, realizing they were not alone. A small pack of zombies, drawn by the earlier commotion, had found their way inside, their milky eyes fixed on the living. Jackson motioned for silence, signaling the others to take cover behind the shelves. Olivia clutched a heavy flashlight, ready to swing if necessary, while Marcus gripped his pipe so tightly his knuckles turned white. The zombies moved slowly but relentlessly, their instincts guiding them toward the scent of fresh blood. Tyler, crouched behind a stack of cereal boxes, caught Jackson's eye and nodded, ready to make a break for the exit if things went south. The group held their breath as the undead shuffled closer, the suspense mounting with every agonizing second. Just as one of the creatures rounded the corner, Evelyn hurled a can of soup across the room, the clatter drawing the zombies' attention away from the group. Seizing the opportunity, Jackson led the charge, dispatching the nearest zombie with a swift blow from his axe. Olivia and Marcus followed suit, working together to take down the remaining threats. The fight was chaotic but quick, the survivors' teamwork and quick thinking giving them the edge. When the last zombie fell, the group wasted no time gathering the supplies they needed, their hands shaking with adrenaline. As they prepared to leave, Olivia spotted a map taped to the manager's office door, marked with several red X's and a note that read, "Safe zones?" She tore it down, tucking it into her backpack, her mind already racing with possibilities. With their packs full and their nerves frayed, the group slipped out the back door, retracing their steps through the ruined city. The sun was rising, casting long shadows across the empty streets, but the sense of danger remained ever present. As they neared the library, Jackson glanced over his shoulder, his instincts screaming that they were being watched. The group quickened their pace, hearts pounding, the question of who, or what, might be following them lingering in the air. The city was a battlefield, and the line between hunter and hunted was growing thinner by the hour. Back inside the battered library, the group wasted no time unloading their hard-won supplies, each member moving with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Olivia spread the map from the grocery store across a dusty table, her brow furrowed as she studied the red X's and cryptic notes. "If these are safe zones, we need to check them out," she said, her voice low but urgent. Marcus, still catching his breath, peered over her shoulder. "Or they could be traps. We don't know who left this." Jackson nodded, his mind already weighing the risks. The group's debate was interrupted by a distant, echoing crash, far enough not to be an immediate threat, but close enough to remind them that the city was never truly silent. Evelyn, ever the voice of reason, suggested they rest and regroup before making any decisions. Tyler, restless and still riding the adrenaline from their escape, volunteered to take first watch, his eyes scanning the street through a crack in the boarded-up window. As the others tried to snatch a few moments of uneasy sleep, Tyler's mind raced with possibilities. He couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed them back from the store. Every shadow seemed to move, every gust of wind sounded like shuffling feet. Hours passed in tense silence until, just before dawn, Tyler spotted movement at the far end of the street. He squinted, heart pounding, as a lone figure stumbled into view, not a zombie, but a living person, clutching a bleeding arm and glancing over their shoulder in terror. Tyler quickly roused the others, and Jackson made the call to let the stranger in, despite Marcus's protests. They unbarred the door just long enough for the newcomer to slip inside, then quickly sealed it again. The stranger introduced himself as Ben Foster, a former paramedic who had been separated from his group during a supply run. He was pale and shaking, but his eyes were sharp with fear and determination. As Evelyn tended to his wound, Ben recounted his story. He'd been ambushed by a new kind of zombie, faster, more cunning, and seemingly able to coordinate with others. The group listened in stunned silence as Ben described how these zombies had set a trap, herding survivors into a dead end before attacking. Olivia's mind raced with questions, but Jackson focused on the immediate threat. If Ben was right, the rules of survival had just changed. The group quickly fortified their defenses, doubling the barricades and setting up makeshift alarms using cans and string. Olivia pored over the map again, searching for patterns in the locations marked as safe zones. "If these new zombies are hunting in packs, we need to move before they find us," she said. Marcus, still skeptical, argued for staying put, but Jackson sided with Olivia. "We can't wait for them to come to us. We need to stay one step ahead." As the sun rose, painting the ruined city in harsh light, the group prepared to move out, their nerves stretched to the breaking point. Before leaving, Jackson took a moment to speak with Ben, asking for any details that might help them avoid the new threat. Ben described the zombies' behavior in chilling detail, the way they seemed to communicate with guttural sounds, the way they circled their prey before attacking. The group exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that their greatest advantage, human intelligence, was now being challenged by something far more dangerous than mindless hunger. With their supplies packed and weapons ready, the survivors slipped out of the library, moving quickly and quietly toward the nearest marked safe zone. Every step felt heavier, every sound more ominous, as they navigated the city's labyrinth of danger. As they moved through the deserted streets, the group's tension mounted. Tyler kept glancing over his shoulder, convinced they were being watched. Olivia led the way, using the map to guide them through back alleys and side streets, always alert for signs of the new threat. Marcus muttered under his breath, his nerves fraying with each passing minute. Evelyn stayed close to Ben, her medical instincts kicking in as she watched for signs of shock or infection. Jackson brought up the rear, his axe at the ready, his eyes scanning every shadow for movement. The city felt different now, more dangerous, more unpredictable. The survivors knew that their next encounter could be their last, but they pressed on, driven by the hope that somewhere out there, a true safe zone still existed. As they approached the first marked location, a guttural howl echoed through the empty streets, sending a chill down their spines. The group froze, hearts pounding, as the sound was answered by another, closer this time. The hunt had begun, and the line between human intelligence and zombie instinct was about to be tested like never before. The group pressed themselves against the crumbling brick wall of an abandoned laundromat, breaths held as the chilling howls reverberated through the city's empty streets. Olivia's hands trembled as she traced their route on the map, her mind racing to find an alternate path to the safe zone. Jackson peered around the corner, his eyes narrowing as he spotted shadows darting between the wrecked cars and piles of debris. These weren't the slow, shambling zombies they'd grown used to, these moved with a predatory purpose, their heads snapping toward any sound, their movements eerily coordinated. Ben's warning echoed in Jackson's mind, and he signaled for the group to move, urgency in every gesture. They slipped through a narrow alley, the stench of rot and mildew thick in the air, and emerged into a small courtyard overgrown with weeds. Marcus, his nerves frayed, nearly tripped over a broken tricycle, but Tyler caught his arm just in time, steadying him with a reassuring nod. Evelyn kept close to Ben, her eyes scanning for any sign of infection in his wound, while Olivia led the way, her focus unwavering. Suddenly, a metallic clang rang out as a stray cat knocked over a trash can, and the group froze. From the shadows, 3 zombies burst into the courtyard, their eyes wild and their movements unnervingly fast. Jackson reacted instantly, swinging his axe in a wide arc, while Tyler darted forward, using his agility to draw one of the creatures away from the others. Marcus, emboldened by the adrenaline, jabbed at another with his pipe, while Olivia smashed a heavy brick into the third skull. The fight was frantic and brutal, the survivors working together with a desperate efficiency born of countless close calls. When the last zombie fell, the group barely had time to catch their breath before more howls echoed in the distance, closer now, and unmistakably organized. "We have to keep moving," Olivia urged, her voice tight with fear. They hurried through the maze of alleyways, guided by the map and the rising sun. As they neared the first marked safe zone, a boarded-up church, they saw signs of recent activity, footprints in the dust, empty food cans, and a hastily scrawled message on the door, "Not safe. Keep moving." The group exchanged worried glances, realizing that the safe zones might no longer be safe at all. Ben, pale and sweating, leaned heavily on Evelyn, who whispered words of encouragement as she checked his bandages. Jackson made the call to keep moving, trusting Olivia's instincts and the group's growing bond. They pressed on, the city growing more dangerous with every block. The new breed of zombies seemed to be everywhere, their guttural calls echoing through the ruins, their movements coordinated as if guided by some dark intelligence. The survivors ducked into an abandoned pharmacy to regroup, barricading the door with a heavy shelf. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the lingering scent of medicine. Olivia searched for anything useful, while Marcus kept watch at the window, his eyes darting nervously. Tyler found a stash of bottled water and energy bars, distributing them quickly as the group caught their breath. As they rested, Ben's condition worsened. His fever spiked, and he began to mutter incoherently, his eyes glassy with pain. Evelyn did her best to comfort him, but the group knew what might come next. The fear of infection hung over them like a shadow, threatening to tear them apart from within. Jackson knelt beside Ben, his voice gentle but firm. "If you feel yourself changing, you have to tell us," he said. Ben nodded weakly, understanding the unspoken truth. The group sat in tense silence, the weight of their situation pressing down on them. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the quiet as a group of zombies slammed against the barricaded door, their snarls and growls filling the small space. The survivors sprang into action, grabbing whatever weapons they could find. Jackson and Tyler braced the door, while Marcus and Olivia searched for another way out. Evelyn stayed with Ben, her hands shaking as she clutched a pair of scissors for protection. The zombies pounded on the door, their strength and coordination unlike anything the group had seen before. The barricade began to splinter, and panic surged through the survivors. Olivia spotted a narrow window at the back of the pharmacy, just big enough for them to squeeze through. "This way," she shouted, and the group scrambled to escape, helping Ben through first. One by one, they slipped out into the alley, just as the door gave way and the zombies flooded into the pharmacy. The survivors ran, their hearts pounding, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. As they rounded a corner, Jackson glanced back and saw the zombies pause at the alley's entrance, their heads turning in unison as if communicating silently. The realization sent a chill down his spine. These creatures were learning, adapting, becoming more dangerous with every encounter. Breathless and shaken, the group ducked into an abandoned garage, barricading the door behind them. As they caught their breath, Olivia spread the map out once more, her hands trembling. "We need a new plan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The group huddled together, the line between hope and despair growing thinner with every passing moment, as the city outside teemed with a new kind of terror, one that threatened to outsmart them at every turn. Inside the dimly lit garage, the survivors sat in a tight circle, the weight of exhaustion and fear pressing down on them. The air was thick with the scent of oil and rust, and every distant sound made them flinch. Ben's breathing had grown shallow, his skin clammy and pale, and Evelyn did her best to keep him comfortable, though she knew the infection was spreading faster than she could treat. Jackson paced near the door, his mind racing with possibilities. "We can't stay here long," he said quietly, glancing at Olivia, who was still poring over the map. "If those things are tracking us, we need to move before nightfall." Olivia nodded, tracing a route to the next marked safe zone, a community center on the edge of the city. "It's a risk, but it's our best shot. If we keep to the back streets, we might avoid the larger packs." Tyler, ever the optimist, tried to lighten the mood. "Hey, at least we're getting our steps in," he joked, earning a weak smile from Marcus, who was nervously checking his makeshift weapon. Suddenly, Ben stirred, his eyes wide with fear. "They're coming," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "I heard them, in my dreams. They're everywhere." The group exchanged uneasy glances, the tension mounting. Evelyn squeezed Ben's hand, her own fear barely contained. "We'll get you somewhere safe," she promised, though her words sounded hollow even to her own ears. As the group prepared to move, Jackson took a moment to reinforce the garage door with a heavy workbench, buying them precious minutes if the zombies found their trail. Olivia led the way, guiding the group through a maze of alleys and overgrown yards, every sense on high alert. The city felt more alive, and more dangerous, than ever, with the distant howls and guttural calls of the undead echoing through the ruins. As they neared the community center, the group spotted a flicker of movement in a nearby playground. Jackson signaled for everyone to stop, crouching low behind a toppled fence. Through the tangled swings and broken slides, they saw a small group of survivors, 3 adults and a child, huddled together, their faces gaunt and wary. For a moment, hope flickered in the group's hearts. Jackson approached cautiously, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We're not infected," he called softly. The other group hesitated, then nodded, allowing Jackson and his friends to approach. Introductions were brief and tense. The newcomers were led by a woman named Dana, a former school principal, along with her brother, Greg, and his wife, Melissa. The child, a boy named Ethan, clung to Dana's side, his eyes wide with fear. Dana explained that they had been hiding in the community center, but the new breed of zombies had forced them out. "They're different," she said, her voice trembling. They hunt in packs, and they're getting smarter. We barely escaped. Olivia showed Dana the map, and the two women quickly compared notes, realizing that most of the marked safe zones had already been overrun. We need somewhere defensible, Dana said. Somewhere we can hold out until help comes, if it ever does. The two groups agreed to join forces, pooling their resources and sharing what little information they had. Marcus and Greg scouted ahead, while Tyler and Melissa kept watch for any sign of the undead. As the sun began to set, the group made their way to an old fire station Dana remembered from her days as a principal. The building was sturdy, with thick walls and a secure garage door. Inside, they found a few supplies and, to their relief, a working radio. Olivia immediately set to work trying to get a signal, her hands shaking with anticipation. Static crackled through the speaker, but then, a voice. "This is Outpost 7. Survivors, respond." The group stared at each other in disbelief, hope surging through their exhaustion. Jackson grabbed the microphone, his voice steady. "This is Jackson Reed. We have survivors. We need help." The voice on the other end replied, "Outpost 7 is secure. If you can make it, we have food, water, and protection. But hurry, the city is lost." The message was both a lifeline and a warning. The group knew the journey would be perilous, but the promise of safety was too great to ignore. As night fell, they fortified the fire station as best they could, taking turns on watch and sharing what little food they had left. Ben's condition continued to deteriorate, and Evelyn stayed by his side, refusing to leave him alone. The others huddled together, listening to the distant sounds of the undead prowling the streets, their minds filled with equal parts hope and dread. For the first time in days, the survivors had a destination, a chance at something more than just survival. But as they prepared for the journey ahead, none of them could shake the feeling that the city's new predators were watching, waiting, and learning. The real test of human intelligence versus zombie instinct was only just beginning. The fire station became a fragile sanctuary as the survivors prepared for their most dangerous journey yet. Olivia worked late into the night, fine-tuning the radio and mapping the route to Outpost 7, her mind racing with calculations and contingency plans. Jackson and Greg reinforced the doors and windows, using whatever they could find, old lockers, metal shelving, even a battered fire hose, to create makeshift barricades. Dana kept Ethan close, reading to him softly from a tattered children's book, her voice a steady anchor in the chaos. Evelyn stayed by Ben's side, her heart heavy as his fever worsened. She knew the signs all too well, and as dawn crept through the station's grimy windows, she quietly called Jackson aside. "He doesn't have much time," she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. "If he turns, we can't risk him hurting anyone." Jackson nodded grimly, the weight of leadership pressing down on him. As the group gathered for a final meal before setting out, Ben struggled to sit up, his voice weak but determined. "Don't let me slow you down," he said, looking each of them in the eye. "If I turn, you know what to do." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the distant, haunting moans of the undead. Olivia handed out the last of the energy bars, and Tyler filled everyone's water bottles, his usual optimism subdued by the gravity of the moment. The plan was simple but risky: move quickly and quietly through the city's backstreets, avoiding main roads and known zombie nests, and reach Outpost 7 before nightfall. Dana and Greg would help guide the way, using their knowledge of the city's layout, while Marcus and Melissa kept watch for any sign of the new, more intelligent zombies. The group moved out at first light, slipping through the city's ruins like shadows. Every block brought new dangers: collapsed buildings, abandoned vehicles, and the ever-present threat of the undead. At one point, they were forced to crawl through a storm drain to avoid a massive horde, the darkness pressing in around them as they inched forward, hearts pounding. Ethan whimpered softly, but Dana soothed him with gentle words, her courage never wavering. When they finally emerged, filthy and exhausted, they found themselves in a quiet residential neighborhood, the silence almost as unnerving as the chaos they'd left behind. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the calm. The group spun around to see a lone survivor sprinting down the street, a pack of the new zombies in pursuit. Without thinking, Jackson and Tyler rushed to help, drawing the zombies' attention and giving the stranger a chance to escape. The fight was brutal. These zombies were faster, stronger, and frighteningly coordinated, flanking their prey and attacking from multiple angles. Olivia, Marcus, and Greg joined the fray, using every ounce of their strength and ingenuity to hold the line. Dana shielded Ethan, while Melissa and Evelyn dragged Ben to safety behind a parked car. When the last zombie fell, the group was battered but alive. The rescued survivor, a young woman named Riley, gasped out her thanks, her eyes wide with terror. "They're changing," she said breathlessly. "They're hunting in packs now. They set traps." The group exchanged grim looks. Ben's warning had been right. As they caught their breath, Olivia checked the map. "We're close," she said, her voice trembling with hope and fear. "Outpost 7 is just a few blocks away." But as they prepared to move, Ben's condition took a sudden, terrifying turn. He convulsed, his eyes rolling back, and Evelyn screamed for help. Jackson rushed to her side, but it was too late. Ben's body went rigid, then slack, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then, with a guttural snarl, Ben's eyes snapped open, now clouded and lifeless. Jackson acted on instinct, raising his axe, but it was Evelyn who stepped forward, tears streaming down her face as she ended Ben's suffering with a single, decisive blow. The group stood in stunned silence, the reality of their world pressing in on them once more. Shaken but resolute, the survivors pressed on, their numbers smaller but their determination stronger than ever. The city around them seemed to close in, every shadow a potential threat, every sound a warning. As they neared Outpost 7, the group moved with renewed urgency, knowing that the line between life and death had never been thinner. The final stretch would test everything they had learned, every ounce of intelligence, every spark of hope, every bond of trust. And as the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the ruined city, the survivors steeled themselves for the last, desperate push toward safety, knowing that the true battle between human ingenuity and zombie instinct was about to reach its climax. The city's ruins glowed orange in the dying light as the survivors made their final approach to Outpost 7. Olivia led the way, her eyes fixed on the map and the distant silhouette of a fortified building rising above the shattered rooftops. The group moved in tense silence, every sense straining for danger. Jackson's grip tightened on his axe, while Dana kept Ethan close, whispering reassurances even as her own fear threatened to overwhelm her. Riley, still shaken from her narrow escape, walked beside Marcus, her gaze darting nervously to every alley and shadow. Greg and Melissa flanked the group, their makeshift weapons ready, while Evelyn brought up the rear, her face pale but resolute after losing Ben. As they rounded a corner, the outpost finally came into full view, a sturdy brick structure surrounded by high fences and floodlights, with armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Relief surged through the group, but it was short-lived. Between them and the outpost, a wide street lay open, littered with abandoned cars and debris. Worse, a large pack of the new, intelligent zombies prowled the area, their movements eerily coordinated as they circled the outpost, searching for a way in. The survivors ducked behind a burned-out van, watching as the zombies tested the fence, probing for weaknesses, their guttural calls echoing in the twilight. Olivia's mind raced. "We can't just run for it, they'll see us," she whispered. Jackson scanned the street, searching for any advantage. "We need a distraction," he said, his voice low. Tyler, ever the risk-taker, volunteered immediately. "I'll draw them off. I'm fast, I can lead them away, then double back." Dana shook her head, fear in her eyes. "It's too dangerous." But Tyler was already moving, slipping through the shadows toward a nearby alley. He found an old car with the keys still in the ignition and, with a silent prayer, started the engine. The sudden roar drew the zombies' attention instantly. Tyler revved the engine, honking the horn and shouting, "Hey! Over here. The pack turned as one, their heads snapping toward the noise, and began to pursue the car as Tyler sped down the street, weaving between obstacles and leading the horde away from the outpost. The rest of the group seized the moment. Olivia led them in a sprint across the open street, hearts pounding as they dodged debris and the few straggling zombies left behind. Jackson and Greg took point, clearing a path with swift, silent blows, while Evelyn and Melissa helped Dana and Ethan keep up. Riley and Marcus brought up the rear, watching for any sign of the main pack returning. As they reached the fence, a guard spotted them and waved them over, quickly unlocking a side gate and ushering them inside. The survivors collapsed in relief as the gate slammed shut behind them, the sounds of the pursuing zombies fading into the distance. Inside the outpost, the group was greeted by a handful of wary but welcoming faces. The leader, a grizzled man named Captain Harris, listened intently as Jackson explained their journey and the new threat posed by the evolving zombies. "We've seen them too," Harris said grimly. "They're getting smarter. We've lost good people." Olivia shared the map and the information they'd gathered, and Harris nodded, impressed by their resourcefulness. "You're safe here, for now. But we need every able body to help defend this place. If those things come back, we'll need all the brains and muscle we can get." As night fell, the survivors settled into the outpost, grateful for the first real safety they'd felt in weeks. But the sense of victory was tempered by the knowledge that the battle was far from over. Tyler had not yet returned, and the threat outside the walls was growing with every passing hour. The group gathered in the common room, sharing stories and plans, their bond stronger than ever. Olivia and Jackson sat together, watching the floodlights sweep the darkness beyond the fence. "We made it," Olivia whispered, her voice trembling with exhaustion and hope. Jackson nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on the shadows. "For now," he replied. "But the real fight is just beginning." As the outpost braced for the night, the survivors knew that their greatest test, of courage, intelligence, and unity, was still to come. Absolutely. Here is part 8 of your story, bringing the suspenseful saga to a thrilling and satisfying conclusion. The night at Outpost 7 was thick with tension, every survivor on edge as the floodlights cast long, wavering shadows across the barricades. Inside, the newcomers were given food, water, and a place to rest, but sleep was elusive. Olivia and Captain Harris pored over the map, marking the locations of recent attacks and theorizing about the zombies' evolving tactics. Jackson checked on each member of the group, offering quiet words of encouragement, but his mind was with Tyler, who had not yet returned. Dana comforted Ethan, who clung to her, wide-eyed and silent, while Evelyn and Melissa tended to minor wounds and tried to keep everyone calm. Riley, still shaken, volunteered for night watch, determined to repay the group's kindness. Just before dawn, a commotion erupted at the main gate. The guards shouted, and the survivors rushed to the lookout post. Through the gloom, they saw Tyler staggering toward the outpost, limping and covered in grime but alive. He had led the horde on a wild chase through the city, doubling back and losing them in the maze of alleys before making his way to the outpost. The group cheered as the gate opened and Tyler was pulled inside, grinning despite his exhaustion. "Miss me?" he joked, and even Captain Harris cracked a rare smile. But the celebration was short-lived. The guards reported that the main horde, now larger and more organized than ever, was regrouping just beyond the outpost's perimeter. The survivors sprang into action, helping the outpost's defenders reinforce the barricades and set up traps. Olivia and Marcus worked with Harris to rig makeshift alarms and distractions, using their knowledge of the zombies' behavior to anticipate their moves. Jackson, Tyler, and Greg organized the able-bodied survivors into teams, each assigned to a section of the wall. Dana and Melissa kept the children and elderly safe in the basement, while Evelyn prepared medical supplies for the inevitable casualties. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, the horde attacked. The new breed of zombies moved with terrifying coordination, testing the defenses for weaknesses and using debris to climb or break through. The survivors fought with everything they had, axes, pipes, even fire extinguishers, using their intelligence and teamwork to outmaneuver the relentless enemy. Olivia's traps bought precious time, and Marcus's quick thinking saved several lives when he spotted a breach and rallied a group to seal it. Tyler, despite his injuries, darted along the barricades, drawing zombies away from weaker points and leading them into ambushes. Jackson fought at the front, his strength and determination inspiring those around him. The battle raged for hours, the outcome uncertain as the zombies pressed their advantage. But the survivors refused to give in. They adapted, communicated, and supported each other, their human intelligence proving to be their greatest weapon. Finally, as the sun climbed higher, the horde began to thin, their numbers dwindling under the relentless defense. With a final, desperate push, the survivors drove the last of the zombies away from the outpost, collapsing in exhaustion as the threat receded. In the aftermath, the survivors gathered in the courtyard, battered but triumphant. Captain Harris addressed the group, his voice filled with hard-won respect. "You all proved something today," he said. "Brains beat instinct. We can survive this, together." Olivia smiled, her eyes shining with hope for the first time in weeks. Jackson put an arm around Tyler, who grinned back, bruised but unbroken. Dana hugged Ethan tightly, while Evelyn and Melissa tended to the wounded, their spirits lifted by the victory. As the city beyond the walls remained dangerous and uncertain, the survivors of Outpost 7 knew the fight was far from over. But they had proven that human intelligence, courage, and unity could prevail against even the most terrifying of foes. With new hope and stronger bonds, they began to rebuild, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. The last stand had not been the end, but a new beginning, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit in a world forever changed.